trying to do with Federator is bring a whole bunch of operations managers together under a single pane of glass without making it a source of pain. Easily connect and monitor up to 5 million cameras through this. The way we get to the 5 million is we can actually manage 500 VSOMs to the system. Glass that is to monitor both live and archive video from pretty much anywhere that your VSOMs reach. That's an important thing, actually. We don't actually look at media servers within this. We only look at operations managers. And I'll go and modify a few things on the Federator system we're using for this training, just so I'm hoping you guys can understand this. I think you'll struggle to get their heads around it. And I'll talk about regions and locations and everything like that. Don't think of a region as a geographical region. Think as a local region interest, as in certain types of places. Okay. Minimal configuration through use of regions and sites to represent VSOM systems. The message that I'm pretty much trying to get across on this, with this initial release, it's a viewing pane for multiple operations managers. With views or anything like that, but we'll go through the SASD element as well. There's a separate SASD for this too. To answer Darius's question before he asks it again, yes, this is a standalone system, and it talks to multiple VSOMs, up to 500 of them. It does support LDAP authentication, but it's got an option to do local authentication as well. Depending on the complexity of the system you guys are trying to manage, I'd probably look at using LDAP in most deployment scenarios, so that the guys have a single username and password. It'd be difficult to go and set up everything exactly the same all over the show. So, especially starting to look at fitted type systems, they'd have some sort of LDAP infrastructure in place already. A separate admin page for this, /VSF/. Some people do struggle with that because it will default to the VSMC page. There's a separate SASD, as I already said. It's to verify the rights that are actually assigned to these users. I'll show you when we add a VSOM to the system, and I'll talk briefly about that as well. No mapping engine at this point in time. So just to remember that there is no mapping in this initial release. We'll go through and create a region, and we'll add a couple of cameras to that as well. The architecture look like, this is it. We have a Federator that sits on top of all these operation managers. Each operation manager obviously manages a whole bunch of media servers under it as well, and that's how we scale up to 5 million cameras. What does it look like? It's like this. I'll go through that as well, and this would actually be the admin page. So let's quickly, while we're in here, let's go to Federator. Oh, you guys can't see my password. So if we log in, where we're going to end up is the operations page. And this is one that uses VSOM on a regular basis. Looks roughly familiar. Option for a number of views that we can go and switch and toggle between. So let's stick to the 4-pane view. What I can do on this side, I'm going to close that quickly, just to guys what the system does. We do videos on one server. The NADA one is on server. And let's have a look at Windows. This is one of my servers. So you can see a horrible day in sunny California today, with rain everywhere. And these views are coming from 3 separate operations managers. What really mean from an admin point back end, I'll show you guys that soon. while on this page, we can do a couple of things. We can do thumbnail search as well within the system. So if I do have a camera with an archive associated to it, I can actually do a thumbnail search on that. So I can go through, just as we do through normal VSOM as well. So that little elements there, that's normal familiar. We do health dashboard. The important thing with this release, you health information from all operations managers that have been configured into the Federator. Even not viewing cameras from those operations managers, you'll still see the health information. We will be looking at screening and filtering that out in the future. But the normal operations manager health dashboard, exactly the same. It groups everything together, and you see I've got a whole bunch of configuration mismatches on a couple of systems. Obviously, servers, it will list the servers, cameras, it will list the cameras, and encoders, it will list the cameras, or encoders for you too. So we have to keep the same look and feel through all the common pages and things like that, just so that nobody gets confused. From standpoint, this is similar to what we in normal operations manager do. It's skinny down. It's got a couple of things that have been taken away. They can download the safety and security desktop as well. You can go and change various settings. You can do the backup and restore the same as we usually do on VSOM. The big thing is, though, with servers. You notice I've got my demo server configured in here. I've got our training servers configured in there, and then I've got someone's IC West server in as well. What I did in this video was log in with admin. When you're in with admin, what it actually does is actually pull up all the cameras that I've got access to within that environment. If I log in with user Suman, and Suman only has access to a restricted set of cameras, you'll be able to pull up those cameras. So as cameras, it's really locations in which the cameras are reading, because we all know we can only assign permission to locations and not to specific cameras. So the ID over there is that needs to have the rights to be able to pull down all camera feeds that you guys want. It doesn't necessarily have to be admin. You might want certain cameras that are only assigned to users, and you can load that user from an operations manager standpoint if you know that only those certain users will be using Federator. That might be a better way to control it. From a standpoint, you actually go and my login privileges and everything like that locally on this box. Federator with separate role permissions and everything like that database. So roles and permissions are local to the Federator login. Now, saying that, if you, when you're at the server, doesn't have access to certain cameras, as a rated user, even if you do have access when logging into the VSOM locally, if you're logging into the Federator, you have access to that. The rights that you use to add the server to the Federator will override. Okay. So it's the viewing pane. The configuration you can do, I can't influence the operations managers on the other side. I can't change cameras, I can't change string settings, recording settings, anything like that. Okay. This is a section where it's going to get confusing for some people. Multiple ways to get the message across properly, and I'm guessing I get some questions around this. If we have this server, it's a federated view. Within, I've got a number of locations, and probably what I'm calling it is geographical locations. These lines aren't really graphical. So box is a geographical location. Just if you look at it, you're thinking of a geographic location. We're going to create a location it's just called Windows. I might have Windows for, I don't know, Windows, ground floor Windows, second floor Windows on various locations throughout all these VSOMs that are spread across the country. So what I can do is I can use those locations and sub-locations the managers that I'm connecting to. So that's one. So let's call that Windows on the ground floor. What I say, okay, location, which is window 1, and the operations manager that I want to connect to is VSM 7 demo. But that I want to connect to and have visible is in NAT zone 2. So I've been doing some NAT testing on this environment. So that camera in that location to the location on the Federator. So what we're doing with regions is mapping the local location, so locations, remote locations. Right. So just so through that again, I've got a number of local locations if the server doesn't crash. Ouch. Okay. We've got an PC issue. All right, so let's try this again. Let's just quickly check something. Okay, cool. What we have is a number of local locations, and what we're doing is taking that local location and region, I map this location to the remote location. Okay, that's pretty in a nutshell from the control point of view. Now the thing is, what I can do is I can go and create users which are local and assign roles to these locations or teams, and they only have access to certain sub-locations and make sure they can only view certain cameras. Okay. So the important thing is that you need to look at the rights that you add the server with from an options manager standpoint. So those rights are going to be important over there because you might not be able to control, well, if you slip up on the VSF admin page, you people access to cameras that they don't really usually have access to. So it's critical from that standpoint. Okay. So quickly go back into regions just so I can show you guys. I'm going to delete that. One thing you'll notice when I go into that region, I have no way of editing that. If I go and mess up with that config, I can't go and change it. The only way to do that is actually delete that and then read that. So simple process, I give that a name. Grab Windows and add that to locate car. So actually, let's go do this differently. Let's go do this properly from the beginning. So let's create a line. With that, I add a sub-location. So then is I can go into my regions, and I'm going to call that the ground, and then add that into his windows on the ground floor. So those windows on the ground floor will span multiple different locations. So which server will we have that's not been mapped already? So there are cameras in there, but this will give you an idea. We then map that accordingly. Okay. So I've now got ground floor. What I can do then is from a user's rights and permissions level, I only assign, I can give the people access to those specific cameras. I can. So we can go do that again for multiple different locations and cameras that we want to start provisioning into the system. So do you have any questions on this?
This is Jason. I have a question here. Is ground floors, you mapped it to one VSOM location, right? Or one VSOM server.
Yeah.
If you get floor cameras associated with multiple VSOM servers, how do I do that?
Okay, so let me actually quickly go do something. So what you have to do is, let's quickly go in. Yeah, I just want to check and make sure this is working. Something actually that will kick up an error. Which server was it on my server? What you're gonna have to do, you're gonna have to start creating multiple ground floors within that. So the best way is gonna be to go and map sub-locations within that. Okay. So this is a bit of a clunky one, which for the being in release 1 is a challenge to get our heads around, because we want to go and start saying where and created sub-locations there. Those, I would say, let's actually move that ground floor location there, okay, and then start mapping down floors of specific type and adding different values. It's just I can pretty much say from ground floors, I would have a location which would be, I don't know, link 8 for that VSOM. But still linking up, that's fine. Okay, I understand. So what I would then do is I'll go under those ground floors and create the multiple locations under that, and then I can map those specific local locations into the various things. I suppose the main thing around this is the ability to give people access to similar locations across multiple operations managers. Typically in these larger environments, we're going to have these distributed over bases. By all rights, if we had a big location in San Jose, building 28, let's take an example. Multiple cameras, yeah, I don't have a lot of bandwidth going from building 28 to building 29. So I actually have an operations manager in each location to be able to give each one their own local admin. But the security guys would want to start looking at buildings within that. Now, if they have a look at the ground floors for each of those buildings, we could create this sub-location and then map each of the ground floor video cameras to, well, video cameras, safety and security cameras, connected safety and security cameras, to the ground floor subtree. Okay. Cool. Jason, other questions at the moment? Open QA.
Yeah, there's one that says, can we cross-launch between the Federator and the operation managers?
No, not at this point in time. You're going to have to open up a separate view completely. Now, saying that...
you can open up another browser window and go directly to a particular VSOM, correct?
That's it, and that's exactly what I'm doing in the back here, and that's why the machine's crashing. So that's the small view we have in any case. So the operations manager on this pane, and I have got client on this side and Federator on this side. Is that so blocking out the view? That cube that's in the middle of nowhere on this? Okay. The client will be hanging on my side, so I'm hoping that it comes across. Okay. Is there anything else on this one? Okay. Yeah, I can see that, but terrible thing hanging in front of me. So I'll try and get through this. I can't see that now. So I've actually got a client issue on this side. Okay, got rid of it. No. Okay, so Jason, I can't read QA on this side. It's actually crashed on my side. The WebEx session's gone.
Okay. I'll keep you updated.
Cool. From a Federator standpoint, we actually do have dedicated logs that we can start looking at. So they're just vf_be, vsf_be.log under the normal BW HTTPD. I still don't know why we call it BW, but hey ho. The sort of nested locations. So if I went in and nested locations under my Windows, well, my ground floor locations, I would have to, I go 5 deep under that. VSF locations with duplicate names cannot exist. It's a single database, so we can't use the same 28 for ground floor and then building 28 for first floor. And so we have to go, if we want to create that hierarchical thing, this is what's getting complicated again, so you guys can see it sort of becomes weird from an architectural standpoint, where you're going to have to go ground floors and then building 28 ground floor, and first floors, building 28 first floor. You can't have building 28 and building 28 within those nested locations. We put this up in the TAC training. Some special characters, accented character, etc., might display properly in the overlay as well. Then a VSF location cannot be created or moved under a VSF region. You guys saw that error actually take place. As soon as I moved it, it messed around. So you have to go and disassociate everything first and then move things around and then recreate it. Okay, can't delete a VSF location while it is mapped to a region. It's just a database continuity thing, just so we don't screw things up completely on that side. And this is important. Customers are going to ask, yeah, but if I give people access to all my operations managers, can't they mess things up? No, they can't. You can't do anything from some standpoint. All we're doing with Federator is we're doing a query using API calls the same any of the third-party PSOM providers would do, the exact same APIs, and saying, give me a list of all the locations you have, give me a list of all the cameras you have, and we map them across. Okay. Already we can use both local login and LDAP. Do recommend going with the LDAP one. The reason I say go with the LDAP one is to make sure that we actually use the same credentials to log into VSOM. What you have to do is you have to create the user on the VSOM. Make sure you create the same username, same password on the Federator login, if that's ever going to happen. So from the standpoint, the LDAP authentication makes way more sense. VSOM will continue to use it for the duration of the session. So that means whatever you log into when you add the server, that's the session that's the authentication that will be used. If you change that later to a user with few rights and you actually assign cameras that the previous person had access to, you'll get an authentication. Well, you'll actually get an access error where it can't display the cameras that you don't have access to. Okay. If we add the server with the incorrect username and password, it will add that server. The server will just be in a critical state. That's all. So it'll be there, just be read. And only the VSOM access info used to access VSOM can be modified from VSF. The VSOM itself cannot be changed from within VSF. It is a pure pass-through application. I say pass-through as in it pulls information from there. It's not single sign-on type application like we imagine from a Microsoft LDAP fully integrated solution. They are still separate systems in that sense, but they just pass information through from multiple VSOMs to your local federator. You can do bulk imports as well, so you can use the CSV file, and that's under the normal provisioning thing. Okay. I went through this. In the initial release, it's going to be used, so what are some of the limitations? The limitations are you can't save the views. So as an operator, you won't be able to save the views that you're used to using. That limiting the scale of where this is going to be used, purely because as an operator of a large-scale deployment, I would probably predefine the views based on various locations and things like that, and I'd want to know which cameras are coming from the list of the USA as an example. So I probably want to be able to group views based on that and just click on that simple view, even if it spans across multiple sublocations within that Northwest, so multiple operations managers. I'd want to be able to pull up that view, just those cameras from various VSOMs. So because of that, we'll see how the customers use this. It's going to be based heavily on how you guys architect this and whiteboard the session, and the customers understand what they're getting. Futures, obviously, will bring mapping and the ability to save views and all those things in. Want to check the uptake of this, see how well it's being used. Okay. It can't be created at the federator's root location. The same location cannot be mapped to multiple regions, and that's we went through that whole step process to show you guys what actually happens. And locations with duplicate names cannot exist. We covered that already. Okay. Management, I've gone through this already. I prefer the LDAP thing. There's a slight bit of a difference between user rights on the federator and operations manager. So let's quickly have a look and see what if we start looking in there, you can start seeing a lot of management permissions are missing. You just frankly can't do anything on the operations manager. And some of the stuff on the operator side are probably the same. So just a lot of control. The admin things are missing because you cannot do that at all. Okay. Let's go back here. Is that caught up again? Yep. So I discussed this already. Permissions are determined by the intersection of permissions inherited from the VSOM user. So the user being the user that you added the VSOM to the federator server with, and the local federator user. Okay. It's like inherited rights in Mustland. Health, and I covered this in the beginning already. We do poll the health every 30 minutes. This initial release, what we're looking at is information from all over. And if we go into each specific one, it will show the location, region, everything like that as well. Okay. Orders. The only reason we have this in here is because we've had some feedback from SEs in the field saying they want to know how to troubleshoot this stuff. So these logs are things you guys can look at to start trying to figure out what's going on. We've done work to try and make error messages more intuitive. Guessing that if you start seeing crazy errors, hopefully by then you've got a attack case open. Okay. There is currently a bug with info not being shown. I need to check if with the release that will go out hopefully today or tomorrow, if that's been fixed. That's a to-do list. Okay. So I briefly showed this. This is pretty much the same as anything else. Should be a familiar workflow for the guys. And we log that in the normal log files as well. You can do up on local, manual, automatic. The thing I actually missed out this morning with the first session was the information that's backed up is only operation data. Because we don't actually do anything else on this box. All we care about is the local configuration. You can back up on remote as well. You can do all these things automatically, normal sort of stuff. So all some sort of backup recovery mechanisms. But again, just so you know what's going on, the maximum number of alerts that can be processed by the server is 1,500 per minute. That's the same as VSOM actually. And the number of individual operations manager servers that can be managed at any given time will be 500 as well. Okay. Number of regions is 2,000. Could be one that has to manage that. Especially 2,000, I don't see anyone that's actually going to attain that, because I think the rights policies for that is going to be a nightmare to configure. That if you do it properly, you'll, from an admin point of view, it'd probably be difficult, but from a user point of view, you could restrict the access and the visibility. So it could get quite nice if you do it properly. Concurrent sessions, everything like that, same as VSOM, and then good locations, depth is 5, while VSOM is 15. Licensing. We've got a federator PID. That's just PID for each federator that you guys build into the system. And what you then is for each VSOM you're adding to the federator, you start paying licenses for that. So I'll briefly cover on some other licensing things now. Been seeing some weird things in the field lately. But we differentiate between the VSOM and then the VSOM Express. So 2 core versus 4